I'm back on the mean streets of Sacramento to make a video to remind everyone, including myself, that there's definitely a connection between hair loss and depression and anxiety. And I made a video yesterday where you saw me in real time, I still am, sorting out Anthony Bourdain's death. And as I look through those comments, that kind of helps give me more direction in some ways on how I feel about this and how to deal with it. Because the way, you've heard this before, people deal with grief in different ways. Some people get really emotional, cry and all this stuff. For me, that's not how I deal with grief. As far as losing a person, like my Mexican grandma, when she died, I loved her so much, but I didn't shed one tear when she cried. And same thing with my grandfather that she was married to, my Italian grandfather. I was so close to them, yet I never actually cried for either of them, because for me, I deal with grief by talking things out. So that way I can understand them. And I think that's what I recognize about depression and anxiety. I have seen a trend. I'm no professional, but I have seen a trend in which people who deal with depression and anxiety, it's as if they're forgetting the whole fact that there are psychological issues that happen to them when they were younger, and they've never dealt with them. They've never talked about those things. They haven't resolved those things, which it only makes sense that here I am as a YouTuber, that I have to sort stuff out too myself. I am more than just an entertainer. I am someone who is truly troubled by Anthony Bourdain's death, and my wife has kind of checked in with me this morning and yesterday. She's sad about it too. Typically famous people I don't really care about famous people. But I guess there are a few. And Tom Petty dying last year, that was another time where I had to deal with it. And Anthony Bourdain too. I guess it's just that I don't respect a lot of famous people. I really don't. So, but Anthony Bourdain was an exception to that. So, while it could be seen that I was just doing that for views and talking about that and making that connection between hair loss and Anthony Bourdain, pointing out the fact that he had a perfect head of hair, yet he still had issues that I guess weren't dealt with. And I think that's very relevant to this channel. And I think it's important for me to address that, because I think so many of my subscribers think that if they just could not lose their hair, get their hair back, that would solve the problems. And I don't believe that. I believe that we look for something on the surface to try to deal with the actual issue instead of dealing with the actual issue. It's interesting too to me that as a YouTuber, I show up on your laptop screen or your phone screen, whatever it is that you're watching me on, and in the likeness of a song by Genesis called Turn It On Again. It's about this guy who was so wrapped up in his favorite TV show, the sitcom, that he began to think that the characters were his real life friends, that he actually knew them in real life. And he couldn't make that disconnect between those are just actors up there. And I think people tend to do that with me because, granted, I cater to different parts of my audience that are dealing with different things on the hair loss spectrum, And when you get to my point, your job is to mentor others and to help others through it. And I understand too, and I've said this before, that a lot of people need some sort of voice that's larger than life. Not everyone can just handle me talking straightforward like I am in this video, telling you that, yeah, there's a difference between real and relevant on my videos. The video I did right after the Anthony Bourdain one was saying, check out my balding spot. Yeah. To me, that's obviously clickbait. I know a lot of people are going to watch that video. And that video meant nothing to me in my heart. No, I did that just to get subscribers and views. I didn't care about that video. I don't care about my balding spot. That's clickbait. Videos where I am talking about Anthony Bourdain and connecting that to my viewers, which undeniably there is, that to me is real. But it was funny because Someone had even said that they unsubscribed over that video because they felt I was capitalizing on Anthony Bourdain. But it's, again, I'm a real person who has to sort this stuff out myself. And that's even why I'm making this video, to further sort out. This is me grieving over Anthony Bourdain and actually showing my respects to him in a way, because he did mean a lot to me as some sort of role model. Even that, can you imagine that role models have role models? But yeah, he inspired me. He really did. But it's funny because the same person who says, I'm unsubscribing because of this, but the opening line in the comment, and you can read it, it's on there unless they delete it. But what's funny, but I guess they'll never see it because they said they unsubscribed. But what's funny is that they started out the comment by basically talking about the king of corporate character. But they didn't address it as a character. They acted like it was real. So let me just point out something that's very obvious to me. The king of corporate is a character. It's a parody. I created it to cater to people in my audience who need a character who's larger than life. You know? So when I made that transition to going back to work full time, and I'm standing in the parking lot of this tall building with, where I do make a lot of money, I felt it was important for some people to have a connection, kind of like fake wrestling. This king of corporate thing is totally a character. The fact that some people actually connect that to me as a real life person is hilarious to me. Like, it's all over the top. It's a parody of myself. It's a parody of American culture. It's a parody of the fact of how truly meaningless hair loss is and what a big deal that people make out of it. So, in real life, this is a real video. This is not clickbait, just like the Anthony Bourdain, not clickbait. And I think that's interesting to me too, as I'm sorting out that certain people in my audience don't understand it's reverse. I almost need to say, if you think it's clickbait, it's probably me being real with you. And if you think otherwise, the opposite is true too. But it tends to think, people think clickbait is actually me sorting stuff out. And see, that's why you have to understand that it's confusing to me. Because if all I did was clickbait, which, again, check out my balding spot, look at my rosemary oil, look at my haircut, my new haircut, all that's clickbait. People don't recognize that. And it's like, in a way, as a YouTuber, there's this curse of not being able to be real because people think that that's actually clickbait. And it's the opposite. So then I start to think, maybe I'm just better off playing a character anyway.